The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest courtroom in the known universe. Its walls stretched upward for hundreds of meters, covered in the flags and symbols of 1,000 species. Light poured down from crystal panels in the ceiling, making everything look clean and pure and holy. But Mira Vance knew the truth. This place was rotten to its core. She stood in the center of the chamber, alone on a small platform that floated above the floor. Her hands were bound behind her back with energy cuffs that hummed against her skin. She was 19 years old, small for her age, with short dark hair and pale skin that had not seen sunlight in months. To the aliens watching from the gallery seats above, she must have looked like a child, a weak, frightened human child. She was not frightened. She was counting. Around her, the representatives of the Galactic Council filled their seats. There were the Vorath, tall and gray-skinned with 4 arms and eyes like black stones. There were the Kalani, delicate bird-like creatures with feathers of blue and gold. There were the Drexians, massive slug-like beings that oozed across their specially designed chairs. And dozens of others, species from every corner of the galaxy, all gathered to watch a human girl face justice, or what they called justice. Judge Kethros sat on the highest platform, looking down at Mira with cold satisfaction. He was a Morellian, an amphibian species with wet green skin and a mouthful of small sharp teeth. His robes were white and gold, the colors of council authority. He had served as a judge for over 200 years, and in that time, he had sent countless beings to their deaths. 17 of them had been human. Mira knew all their names. She had memorized them during her months in the holding cell. "The court will come to order," Judge Kethros announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are gathered to deliver judgment in the case of the Galactic Council versus Mira Vance of Earth. The accused stands charged with the murder of Torek Val Vorath, son of High Commander Vorath, on Neutral Station 17. Murder. The word hung in the air like poison. Mira remembered that night clearly. She had been working as a translator on the station, one of the few jobs available to humans in this part of the galaxy. Torek had cornered her in a maintenance corridor after her shift. He had been drunk on some alien substance that made his forearms shake with excitement. He had told her what he was going to do to her. He had laughed when she told him to stop. She had not laughed when she killed him. "The evidence against the accused is overwhelming," Judge Kethros continued. "She was found standing over the body of the victim. Her hands were covered in his blood. She made no attempt to flee or deny her actions." In the gallery, the Vorath delegation watched with hungry eyes. High Commander Vorath himself sat in the front row, his 4 hands gripping the railing so hard that the metal bent. His son had been his only heir, his pride, his legacy, and a human girl had taken that away from him. He wanted her to suffer. He had paid a great deal to make sure she would. "The defense may speak," Judge Kethros said, gesturing to a small platform where Earth's legal representative stood. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting for Mira's freedom for 6 months, and he had lost every battle. The system was designed to crush people like them. "Your Honor," Ambassador Chen began, "the defense maintains that Mira Vance acted in self-defense. We have security footage from the station that clearly shows Torek Val Vorath pursuing my client into the maintenance corridor. We have medical records showing injuries consistent with an assault. We have testimony from—" "The footage has been reviewed and found to be inconclusive," Judge Kethros interrupted. "The medical records are disputed by Vorath physicians, and the witnesses have withdrawn their statements." Ambassador Chen's hands shook with frustration. They withdrew because they were threatened. Everyone knows the Vorath have been intimidating witnesses since the beginning of this trial. This is not justice. This is a show designed to satisfy the political demands of a powerful species at the expense of an innocent young woman. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted in agreement, others hissed and booed. The Vorath delegation rose from their seats, pointing their forearms at Ambassador Chen and screaming insults in their harsh language. Judge Kethros slammed his gavel against the podium. The sound echoed like thunder, and the chamber fell silent. "Ambassador Chen," the judge said slowly, "you will control yourself, or you will be removed from this chamber. The evidence has been reviewed according to council law. Your objections have been noted and dismissed. This court will not be swayed by emotional appeals or baseless accusations. Mira watched it all with empty eyes. She had known from the beginning that this would happen. The Vorath were too powerful, too wealthy, too connected. They had bought the judges and silenced the witnesses and buried the evidence. They had turned a clear case of self-defense into a murder trial. And now they would watch her die. But they had made one mistake. They had underestimated her. Does the accused wish to make a statement before judgment is passed? Judge Kethros asked, looking down at Mira with something like pleasure in his wet eyes. Mira lifted her head. For the first time since the trial began, she spoke. Yes. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. Every alien leaned forward to hear. I killed Torek Valvorath, Mira said. I am not sorry. He attacked me. He tried to hurt me in ways that I will not describe in this chamber. I defended myself, as any living being has the right to do. The evidence proves this. You know it proves this. But you have chosen to ignore it because the Vorath are powerful and humans are not. She paused, letting her words sink in. I have watched this trial. I have listened to your lies. I have seen how this council treats those who cannot fight back. And I have learned something important. Judge Kethros frowned. What have you learned, human? Mira looked directly into his eyes. I have learned that you are not as smart as you think you are. The judge's frown deepened. This court does not have time for childish insults. If you have nothing meaningful to say, then... I have something very meaningful to say, Mira interrupted. But I will save it for later. Please continue with your show. A murmur ran through the gallery. No one spoke to Judge Kethros this way. No one dared. But this small human girl stood on her platform with her hands bound behind her back and looked at him like he was nothing. Judge Kethros straightened his robes and cleared his throat. Very well. This court has reviewed all evidence and testimony in the case of the Galactic Council versus Mira Vance. We find the accused guilty of murder in the first degree. The Vorath delegation cheered. High Commander Vorath stood and raised all four arms in triumph. The sentence, Judge Kethros continued, is death by neural dissolution. The chamber fell silent. Neural dissolution was one of the most painful execution methods in the galaxy. It destroyed the brain slowly, cell by cell, keeping the victim conscious through hours of agony. It was reserved for the worst criminals, the most hated enemies. Using it on a teenage girl was a statement, a message to humanity about their place in the galaxy. Ambassador Chen collapsed into his chair, his face white with horror. He had failed. He had done everything he could, and he had failed. The execution will be carried out immediately, Judge Kethros announced. Guards, take the prisoner to the dissolution chamber. 4 guards approached Mira's platform. They were Kalani, tall and strong despite their delicate appearance. Their hands gripped her arms, and they began to lead her away. Mira did not struggle. She walked with them calmly, her head held high. As she passed the judge's platform, she stopped. The guards tried to pull her forward, but she did not move. It was like trying to move a mountain. Judge Kethros, she said, her voice still quiet and calm, you should have read my file. The judge laughed. Your file? What could possibly be in your file that would interest me? Mira smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Everything, she said. The guards pulled harder, and this time Mira let them lead her away. The chamber doors closed behind her, and the trial was over. In the gallery, Ambassador Chen pulled out his communicator with shaking hands. He typed a message to Earth, using codes that only the highest military commanders would understand. The message was simple. Prometheus is in danger. Trial failed. Execution imminent. 3 seconds later, he received a reply. Understood. Stay clear of the execution chamber. Ambassador Chen read the message twice. Then he erased it from his device and walked out of the grand chamber as quickly as he could. Something was about to happen. Something that would change the galaxy forever. In the execution chamber below, Mira Vance waited in the darkness. She could feel the energy cuffs around her wrists, the cold metal floor beneath her feet, the distant hum of the neural dissolution machine warming up. She could hear the guards talking outside the door, laughing about the stupid human girl who thought she could fight back against the Vorath. They had no idea what was coming. Mira closed her eyes and began to count again. She counted her heartbeats, slow and steady. She counted the seconds until the door would open. She counted the steps from the door to the machine. She counted everything because counting kept her calm. And she needed to be calm for what came next. The door opened. Light poured into the chamber, and Mira Vance began to smile. The execution chamber was cold and gray, built from metal that absorbed all warmth and hope. In the center stood the neural dissolution machine, a nightmare of wires and tubes and glowing crystals. It looked almost beautiful in the dim light, like some kind of alien flower. But Mira knew what it did. She had studied it during her months in the holding cell, learning every detail about how it worked and how it killed. She had also learned how to survive it. The guards pushed her forward, their Kelleny hands firm on her shoulders. There were 6 of them now, plus 2 technicians in white coats who stood near the machine, preparing the equipment. And standing in the corner, watching with wet satisfaction in his cold eyes, was Judge Kethros himself. He had come to watch her die. Mira had hoped he would. "Strap her in," one of the technicians said, not even looking at her. To them, she was just another body, just another job. The guards led her to a metal chair in front of the machine. They forced her to sit, and then they began attaching straps to her arms, her legs, her chest. The straps were made of some kind of synthetic material, stronger than steel. They were designed to hold prisoners who thrashed and screamed as their brains were slowly destroyed. Mira did not thrash. She sat perfectly still and watched everything with calm, calculating eyes. "The neural dissolution process will take approximately 4 hours, the lead technician announced, speaking to Judge Kethros as if Mira was not even there. "The prisoner will remain conscious throughout. She will experience increasing pain as her neural pathways are systematically destroyed. Death will occur when the process reaches the brainstem." Judge Kethros nodded slowly, his thin lips curving into a smile. "Good. Make sure the recording equipment is active. The Varath High Commander wishes to watch." "Of course, Your Honor." Mira listened to them talk about her death like they were discussing the weather. She felt the straps tighten around her body. She watched the technicians attach small metal discs to her temples, connecting her brain to the machine. And through it all, she kept counting. 60 seconds until the machine activated. 59. 58. "Do you have any last words, human?" Judge Kethros asked, stepping closer to look at her. His wet skin glistened in the dim light. His small, sharp teeth showed when he smiled. "Any message for your pathetic species?" Mira met his eyes. "Yes," she said. "I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember how confident you felt, how powerful, how safe. I want you to remember that you chose to be here." The judge laughed. "Why would I want to remember the death of an insignificant human girl?" "Because," Mira said quietly, "you will not live long enough to forget." Before the judge could respond, the lead technician spoke. "The machine is ready, Your Honor. Shall we begin?" Judge Kethros stepped back, still smiling. "Begin." The technician pressed a button, and the neural dissolution machine hummed to life. Energy flowed through the wires, through the metal discs, into Mira's brain. The process had started. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the technician frowned. He checked his instruments, tapped on his screen, checked again. "That's strange," he muttered. "The readings are wrong. The neural pathways aren't responding." Judge Kethros stepped forward, his smile fading. "What do you mean?" "I mean the machine is working, but her brain isn't reacting. It's like—" The technician trailed off, staring at his instruments in confusion. "It's like her neural pathways are shielded somehow." Mira began to laugh. It was a quiet sound at first, barely more than a breath, but it grew louder, filling the cold chamber with a sound that made the guards step backward, and the technicians look at each other in fear. "What's so funny?" Judge Kethros demanded, his voice rising. "What is the meaning of this?" Mira stopped laughing. She looked at him with eyes that were no longer calm and empty. They were alive now, burning with something that made the judge's wet skin turn pale. "The meaning," she said, "is that you really should have read my file." She moved. The straps that held her arms snapped like thread. The metal chair beneath her crumpled like paper. She rose from the machine in one fluid motion, the wires ripping away from her temples, and before anyone could react, She was standing free in the center of the chamber. The guards raised their weapons. They were too slow. Mira crossed the distance between them in less than a second. She moved like water, like wind, like something that could not be stopped or even seen clearly. Her hands found the first guard's weapon and twisted it away. Her elbow struck the second guard's throat. Her foot swept the legs of the third. She spun and ducked and struck, and in the space of 3 heartbeats, all 6 guards lay on the floor. They were not dead. She had been careful about that. They were unconscious, their weapons scattered around them, but they were alive. The technicians screamed and ran for the door. Mira let them go. They were not important. Judge Kethros was important. He stood frozen in the corner, his 400 years of life flashing before his eyes. He had seen many things in his long career. He had sent hundreds of beings to their deaths. He had watched executions and wars and massacres without flinching. But he had never seen anything like this. He had never seen a human move like that. "What are you?" he whispered, pressing himself against the wall. Mira walked toward him slowly. There was no need to hurry now. The door was locked from the inside, and her work was not finished. "I am Mira Vance," she said. "I am 19 years old. I was born in a small town in what used to be called Montana. I like to read books and watch old movies and cook meals for my family." She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. "I am also the product of something called the Prometheus program." The judge's eyes widened. I don't understand." "No, you don't. Let me explain." Mira held up her hand, examining her own fingers like she was seeing them for the first time. 60 years ago, humanity joined the galactic community. We were young and weak and naive. We thought the galaxy would welcome us. Instead, we found corruption and cruelty and species like the Vorath who saw us as prey. She lowered her hand and looked at the judge. "Our leaders realized that we needed to change. Not openly, not in ways the galaxy would notice, but quietly, secretly, in hidden laboratories and classified programs. They called it Prometheus, after a god from our mythology who gave fire to humanity." Judge Kethros tried to speak, but his mouth was too dry. "The Prometheus program modified us," Mira continued. "Our bones are reinforced with carbon lattice. Our muscles are enhanced with synthetic fibers. Our reflexes are 4 times faster than a normal human, and our neural pathways are shielded against electromagnetic interference." She smiled. "Including neural dissolution." "Please," the judge whispered. "Please, I was only following the law." "The Vorath demanded—" "I know what the Vorath demanded." Mira's voice was cold now, cold as the metal walls around them. "I also know what you did, not just to me, to 17 other humans over the past decade. 17 innocent people who came to this council seeking justice and found only death." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a data chip, filled with information she had gathered during her months in the holding cell. Sarah Chen, age 24, accused of theft by a Morellian merchant. Evidence showed she was innocent. You sentenced her to death anyway. Mira's voice was steady, but her eyes burned. Michael Torres, age 31, accused of assault by a Kelani noble. He had defended a child from abuse. You sentenced him to death. She listed them all. 17 names, 17 stories. 17 humans who had trusted the Galactic Council and been betrayed. When she finished, Judge Kethros was weeping. Green tears ran down his wet skin, pooling on the floor beneath his feet. "I had no choice," he sobbed. "The powerful species control everything. If I had ruled against them, they would have destroyed me. I was just trying to survive." Mira looked at him for a long moment. Part of her felt something like pity. He was old and weak and afraid, just like the galaxy had thought she was. But then she remembered the faces of the 17 humans who had died because of his cowardice. She remembered Sarah Chen and Michael Torres and all the others whose names the galaxy had forgotten. "You always had a choice," she said quietly. "You just chose yourself over everyone else." She reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. He flinched, expecting death. "I have one question for you," Mira said. "Answer honestly, and I will consider mercy." The judge nodded frantically. "Anything. Anything. Did any of them beg? The 17 humans you killed. Did any of them beg for their lives the way you are begging now? Judge Kethros closed his eyes. Green tears continued to fall, and in a voice barely louder than a breath, he told the truth. Yes, they all did. Mira nodded slowly. She had known the answer before she asked, but she had needed to hear him say it. Then you understand, she said, why I cannot show you what you never showed them. What happened next was quick. Mira had been trained to kill efficiently, to minimize suffering even when dealing with enemies. She was not cruel. She was not a monster, but she was a protector, and sometimes protectors had to do terrible things. When it was over, Judge Kethros lay still on the cold metal floor. Mira stepped back and looked around the execution chamber. The guards were still unconscious. The technicians had fled. The neural dissolution machine hummed uselessly in the corner, waiting for a victim it would never claim. She walked to the center of the room and sat down cross-legged on the floor. Then she closed her eyes and waited. She did not try to escape. She did not try to hide. She had done what she came to do, and now she would face whatever came next. Outside the chamber, alarms began to wail. She could hear footsteps running, voices shouting, weapons charging. The entire council complex was going into lockdown. They would breach the door soon, and they would find her sitting peacefully among the fallen guards and the body of their precious judge. Let them come, she thought. Let them see what happens when they push humanity too far. Far above in the grand chamber, Ambassador Chen received a message on his secure communicator. It contained only 3 words. Prometheus has bloomed. He read the message, deleted it, and walked to the window. Outside, the capital city of Nexara gleamed in the alien sunlight, billions of beings going about their lives, unaware that everything was about to change. Somewhere in the darkness of space, 300 human warships were already moving toward the planet. The galaxy had made a mistake, and now it would learn the truth about humanity. Mira Vance smiled in her chamber of death, and she waited for the storm to begin. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. A human girl had killed Judge Kethros. A human girl had broken free from neural dissolution, defeated 6 armed guards, and executed one of the most powerful judges in the Galactic Council. The footage from the execution chamber was everywhere, broadcast on every network, shared on every platform, watched by billions of beings on thousands of worlds, and everyone had the same question. How? In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, the chamber was in chaos. Representatives screamed at each other in dozens of languages. The Vorath delegation demanded immediate war against Earth. The Kalani called for calm. The Drexians suggested destroying the human homeworld as an example to other minor species. And through it all, Ambassador Chen stood at his podium with his hands folded and his face completely calm. Order! The new presiding judge, a Morellian woman named Thesara, slammed her gavel against the podium. This council will have order. Slowly the chamber quieted, but the anger remained, thick in the air like smoke. Ambassador Chen, Judge Thesara said, her voice cold with barely controlled fury, your species has committed an act of unprecedented violence against this council. One of our highest judges has been murdered. The execution of justice has been obstructed, and your people show no remorse. She leaned forward, her wet skin gleaming. What do you have to say for yourself? Ambassador Chen took a deep breath. He had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. He had known from the day he took this position that it would eventually come to this. Humanity had tried to work within the system. They had tried to follow the rules, to build alliances, to earn respect through patience and diplomacy. But the system was broken. The rules only protected the powerful, and respect had to be earned through strength. Your Honor, he said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber, I have a great deal to say, but first I must inform this council of a development that occurred approximately 3 hours ago. He pressed a button on his podium, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber floor. It showed the space around Nexara, the capital world. Stars glittered in the darkness. Ships moved in their usual patterns, transports and freighters and patrol vessels going about their business. And then the display changed. New signatures appeared on the edge of the system, 1 at first, then 10, then 50, then 100. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, spreading across the void like a wave of steel and fire. By the time the display stopped updating, there were 300 ships arranged in a crescent around the planet. Human ships. The chamber erupted in screams. Representatives fled for the exits. Military officials shouted into their communicators. The Vorath delegation stood frozen, staring at the display with disbelief written across their gray faces. "What is this?" Judge Thesara demanded, her voice cracking with fear. "What have you done?" Ambassador Chen raised his hand, and the chamber slowly quieted again. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. Everyone needed to understand what was happening. "This," Ambassador Chen said, "is the truth about humanity." He pressed another button, and the display zoomed in on one of the ships. It was massive, larger than any vessel the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull was smooth and black, covered in weapons that pulsed with strange energies. It moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so huge. "For 60 years, Ambassador Chen continued, humanity has been a member of the galactic community. We have followed your laws. We have respected your customs. We have submitted to your courts and accepted your judgments, even when those judgments were unjust." His voice hardened. "And in return, we have watched our people be exploited, abused, and murdered." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative who dared to look back. 17 humans have been executed by this council over the past decade. All of them were innocent. All of them had evidence that proved their innocence. And all of them died because powerful species like the Vorath paid judges like Kethros to ignore the truth. He paused. "We have the records. We have the financial transactions. We have the communications between Kethros and his paymasters. Every piece of corruption, documented and verified." The Vorath High Commander rose from his seat, his forearms shaking with rage. "This is lies. Propaganda. You cannot prove." "Yes, we can." Ambassador Chen pressed another button, and thousands of documents appeared on the display. Bank records, private messages, secret agreements. These files are being broadcast to every media outlet in the galaxy as we speak. By tomorrow, every being in the known universe will know exactly how corrupt this council has become. Judge Thesara stared at the documents with growing horror. She had known about some of the corruption, of course. Everyone knew. But to see it laid out so clearly, so completely, with no possibility of denial or excuse. "This changes nothing," the Vorath High Commander snarled. "Your girl murdered a council judge. Justice must be served. We demand her immediate execution, and we demand the destruction of your fleet for this act of aggression." Ambassador Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You demand?" he said softly. "You demand." He pressed a final button on his podium. The holographic display changed again, this time showing a tactical analysis of the situation, the human fleet versus the combined forces of the Galactic Council, the numbers, the weapons, the projected outcomes. "High Commander," Ambassador Chen said, "our fleet could destroy every ship in the system in approximately 6 minutes. Our weapons use technologies that your scientists have not even theorized yet. Our shields can withstand anything you throw at them. And our soldiers—" He glanced at the footage from the execution chamber, still playing on a side screen. "Well, you have seen what our soldiers can do." The High Commander's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing. The numbers on the display were clear. The Galactic Council's military forces were no match for the human fleet, not even close. "But we do not want war," Ambassador Chen continued, his voice softening. "We never wanted war. We wanted justice. We wanted fairness. We wanted to be treated as equals, not prey." He looked around the chamber again. "We are offering the galaxy a choice." Judge Thesara found her voice. "What choice? Reform or fall?" Ambassador Chen stepped out from behind his podium and walked to the center of the chamber floor. "This council has been corrupt for centuries. Minor species have suffered under the tyranny of the powerful. Justice has been sold to the highest bidder, but it does not have to stay this way." He turned slowly, addressing every representative in the chamber. "Humanity is not your enemy. We could have destroyed you years ago if we wanted to. We built our fleet in secret, trained our soldiers in hidden facilities, develop technologies that make yours look primitive. And we did it all without attacking anyone, without starting any wars, without harming a single being. He paused. We did it because we knew this day would come. We knew that eventually we would have to show the galaxy what we were capable of. The chamber was silent. Every being listened, barely breathing. But capability is not the same as intention, Ambassador Chen said. We have the power to conquer. We choose not to. We have the power to destroy. We choose not to. Instead, we offer you a chance to build something better. He turned to face Judge Thesera directly. Release Mira Vance into our custody. Begin immediate reforms of the Council justice system. Give minor species a voice in galactic governance. End the corruption that has poisoned this institution for centuries. His voice rose, filling the chamber. Do this, and humanity will stand with you. We will protect the weak. We will defend the innocent. We will help you build a galaxy where justice means something. He paused, letting his words sink in. Refuse, and we will leave. We will take our fleet and our technology and our soldiers, and we will return to our own corner of the galaxy. We will protect our people and our allies, and we will let this council rot from within. He smiled grimly. But I suspect that once the minor species see what we have shown them today, they will have their own ideas about reform. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly, something began to happen. Representatives from the minor species started to stand. The Talari, a small insectoid race that had been oppressed for generations. The Minori, amphibious beings who had lost countless members to corrupt courts. The Zelani, the Dreth, the Corvin, and dozens of others. They rose from their seats one by one, and they looked at Ambassador Chen with something that had been missing from their eyes for a very long time. Hope. We stand with humanity, the Talari representative said, her voice trembling but clear. We have suffered long enough. As do we, the Minori added. The time for change has come. The Vorth High Commander looked around the chamber with growing desperation. His allies were abandoning him. The power structure he had relied on for centuries was crumbling before his eyes. This is treason, he shouted. This is rebellion. I will not. You will do nothing. Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Your fleet is surrounded. Your corruption is exposed. Your power is an illusion that humanity has chosen to shatter. He stepped closer to the Vorth, looking up at the towering alien without fear. You have two choices, High Commander. Accept the new reality and work toward reform, or refuse and watch everything you built fall apart. The High Commander stared at him for a long moment, his four hands clenched into fists. His black eyes burned with hatred. But in the end, he said nothing. He sat down in his seat and looked away. Ambassador Chen nodded slowly. Wise choice. He turned back to Judge Thesera. Your Honor, I believe we have much to discuss, but first I would like to collect our citizen from your detention facility. He smiled. I'm sure Mira's getting tired of waiting. In the execution chamber far below, Mira Vance sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor, surrounded by unconscious guards and the body of Judge Kethros. She had heard nothing from the outside world. She had no idea what was happening in the council chamber above. But she was not worried. She had done her part. She had shown the galaxy what a single human could do when pushed too far. Now it was up to her people to finish what she had started. She closed her eyes and thought about Montana, about the small town where she grew up, about the family she had left behind when she joined the Prometheus program. She thought about the 17 humans who had died in this chamber, whose names she had memorized, whose deaths she had avenged, and she smiled because she knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. The galaxy was about to change, and Mira Vance had lit the spark. The Vorth fleet arrived 3 hours after the council session ended. 47 warships dropped out of hyperspace on the far side of the system, their weapons already charging. High Commander Vorth had called for reinforcements the moment he realized what was happening, and his people had answered. It was a foolish decision. Everyone knew it was foolish. But the Vorth were proud, and their pride would not let them accept defeat without a fight. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the human flagship, the UES Prometheus. She was a small woman with dark skin and gray hair cut short in the military style. She had served in Earth's secret fleet for 30 years, waiting for this day, training for this moment. Now it had finally come. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "The Vorath fleet is moving into attack formation. They will be in weapons range in approximately 4 minutes." Okonkwo nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Vorath were not known for their wisdom. "Open a channel to their flagship," she ordered. "Let's give them one more chance." A moment later, the face of the Vorath fleet commander appeared on the main screen. He was younger than the High Commander, probably his nephew or cousin, with the same gray skin and black eyes. His forearms were crossed over his chest in a gesture of defiance. "Human vessel," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You are ordered to stand down immediately. Your presence in this system is an act of war. Surrender your fleet and release the murderer Mira Vance for execution, or you will be destroyed." Admiral Okonkwo smiled. She had heard threats like this before, in training simulations and strategic exercises. The Vorath always assumed that their enemies would back down when faced with superior numbers. They had never faced an enemy who was not afraid. "Fleet Commander," she said calmly, "I am going to give you some advice. Please listen carefully, because I will only say this once." The Vorath commander's eyes narrowed. "You dare to give me advice? You are nothing but—" "Turn your ships around," Okonkwo interrupted. "Go home. Tell your High Commander that this fight is not worth having. Tell him that humanity does not want war, but we are ready for it if you force our hand." She leaned forward slightly. "And tell him that every ship he sends against us will be disabled and captured. Every soldier who attacks us will be taken prisoner. We will not kill unless we have no other choice. But we will defend ourselves and we will protect our people." The Vorath commander laughed. "Disabled and captured? You truly believe you can defeat a Vorath battle fleet without killing anyone? You are even more foolish than I thought." "Perhaps," Okonkwo agreed, "but I do not think so." She ended the transmission and turned to her crew. "All ships, prepare for combat. Weapons to minimum lethality. Targeting systems locked on their propulsion and weapons arrays only. No kill shots unless I give the order." Her officers acknowledged the commands and began their work. Around them, the 300 ships of the human fleet moved into position, forming a defensive sphere around the planet Nexara. On the bridge of the Vorath flagship, the fleet commander gave his own orders. His ships accelerated toward the human fleet, weapons charging, shields at maximum power. He was confident in his victory. The Vorath had been warriors for thousands of years. They had conquered dozens of species. What could these humans possibly do against them? He was about to find out. The battle began at 1447 Galactic Standard Time. It ended at 1451. 4 minutes. The Vorath ships fired first, launching a barrage of plasma torpedoes and particle beams at the human fleet. The weapons crossed the void at near light speed, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships did not even try to dodge. They simply waited. The weapons struck their shields and disappeared. No explosions, no damage, no effect at all. The human shields absorbed every shot like water absorbing drops of rain. The Vorath commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "That's impossible," he whispered. "No shield technology can—" He never finished the sentence. The human fleet moved. That was the only way to describe it. One moment they were in a defensive formation, and the next moment they were everywhere. They flowed around the Vorath ships like a river flowing around rocks, faster than sensors could track, faster than weapons could target. And then they fired. The human weapons were nothing like anything the galaxy had seen. They were precise, surgical, almost delicate. They struck the Vorath ships exactly where they needed to strike, destroying engines and weapon systems while leaving the rest of the vessel intact. They penetrated shields as if they did not exist. They cut through armor like light through glass. In 4 minutes, every Vorath warship was drifting dead in space. Engines dark. Weapons silent. Life support still functioning. 47 ships and over 200,000 soldiers defeated without a single death. Admiral Okonkwo watched the tactical display update, showing the disabled Vorath fleet floating helplessly in the void. She felt no satisfaction, no pride, only a deep sadness for what could have been avoided. "All ships, stand down from combat status," she ordered. Launch rescue shuttles to assist any Vorath vessels with damaged life support, and open a channel to their fleet commander. A moment later, the Vorath commander appeared on screen again. His face was pale gray now, his black eyes wide with shock and fear. Behind him, his bridge was dark, lit only by emergency lights. "Fleet commander," Okonkwo said quietly, "I take no pleasure in your defeat. Your soldiers fought bravely, and they will be treated with honor." She paused. "I am sending rescue shuttles to assist your ships. Any crew that surrenders will be fed, housed, and returned to Vorath space once the current crisis is resolved." The commander stared at her as if she had spoken in an alien language. You are helping us? After we attacked you?" "Yes." Okonkwo's voice was steady. "Because that is who we are. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are protectors. And sometimes that means protecting even our enemies from the consequences of their mistakes." She ended the transmission and turned to her first officer. "Status report. All enemy vessels disabled, Admiral. 0 human casualties. 0 Vorath casualties confirmed, though we're still scanning for injuries." He paused, looking at his display with something like wonder. "Admiral, I've never seen anything like this." "Neither have they," Okonkwo said. "And that's the point." She stood and walked to the main view screen, looking out at the scattered Vorath fleet. In the distance, she could see the planet Nexara, blue and green against the darkness of space. Billions of beings lived on that world, beings who had just witnessed something that would change everything they believed about humanity. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," she ordered, "and broadcast it to every ship in the system, every station, every world that can receive." Her communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Okonkwo took a deep breath and began to speak. "Citizens of the galaxy," she said, her voice carrying across the void. "My name is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Fleet. Today, you witnessed a battle between human and Vorath forces. You saw our ships disable an enemy fleet in 4 minutes without taking a single life. And I imagine you are asking yourselves one question. Why?" She paused, letting the question hang in the air. "We could have destroyed them. Our weapons are capable of annihilating entire fleets, of reducing planets to ash, of ending the Vorath species in a matter of hours. We have that power. We have had it for decades." Her voice softened. "But power without wisdom is just another form of destruction, and humanity has had enough of destruction." She turned to face the view screen directly, as if looking into the eyes of every being in the galaxy. "For 60 years we have watched the galaxy. We have seen how the strong prey upon the weak. We have seen corruption and cruelty and injustice on a scale that breaks the heart, and we have prepared ourselves, not for conquest, but for protection." She raised her hand, gesturing at the ships around her. "This fleet exists to defend those who cannot defend themselves, to stand against tyranny wherever it appears, to show the galaxy that there is another way." She lowered her hand and continued in a quieter voice. "We did not come here to start a war. We came because one of our children was about to be murdered for a crime she did not commit. We came because 17 humans were executed by corrupt courts over the past decade, and no one in the galaxy cared enough to stop it. We came because enough is enough." She straightened her shoulders, her voice rising again. "But we do not want revenge. We do not want to rule. We want justice, true justice, for all beings, regardless of species or power or wealth. And we are willing to work with anyone who shares that goal." She looked directly into the camera, her eyes burning with conviction. "To the Galactic Council, reform your systems, end the corruption, give every species a voice and a fair hearing. Do this and humanity will stand beside you as allies and protectors. Refuse, and we will leave you to your fate." She paused. "But know this, the minor species are watching. They have seen what we can do, and they will not forget." She ended the transmission and turned away from the view screen. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, the representatives sat in stunned silence. They had watched the battle, they had heard the Admiral's words, and they understood, finally, what they were dealing with. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not primitive. Humanity was something far more dangerous than a conqueror or a destroyer. Humanity was patient. They had waited 60 years, building their strength in secret, watching the galaxy with careful eyes. They could have attacked at any time. They could have crushed their enemies and taken what they wanted, but they had chosen a different path. They had chosen to wait until the moment was right, until the injustice was clear for all to see, until the galaxy was ready to change. And now that moment had come. Judge Thesara rose slowly from her seat. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. This council calls an emergency session to discuss immediate reforms to the galactic justice system. All representatives are required to attend. She paused, looking around the chamber at the frightened faces of the powerful species and the hopeful faces of the minor ones. It appears that we have much to learn from our human friends. Far above, aboard the UES Prometheus, Admiral Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. The hard part was over. Now the real work could begin. And somewhere in the detention facility below, Mira Vance waited for the doors to open, ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy was changing, and Mira was glad to have been the spark that started the fire. 6 months had passed since the day that changed everything. Mira stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, the same room where she had been sentenced to death. But the room was different now. The flags and symbols on the walls had been rearranged, with the banners of minor species hanging alongside those of the great powers. New seats had been added to the gallery, filled with representatives who had never been allowed to speak before. And at the center of the chamber, where Judge Kethros once sat, there was now a panel of 12 judges from 12 different species, chosen by fair election. Today was a special day. Today, the man who had tried to hurt Mira would finally face justice. Torek Valvorath stood on a floating platform in the center of the chamber, his forearms bound behind his back. He was thinner than Mira remembered, his gray skin pale from months in detention. He had not been treated cruelly. He had been fed and housed and given medical care. But he had also been forced to wait, to watch as the galaxy changed around him, to understand that his family's power could no longer protect him from the truth. Torek Valvorath, the lead judge announced, "You are charged with assault and attempted violation of a sentient being. The evidence against you has been reviewed by this court, including security footage from Neutral Station 17, medical records from the victim, and testimony from 17 witnesses." The judge paused, looking down at the accused with cold eyes. "How do you plead?" Torek's voice was quiet, broken. "Guilty." A murmur ran through the chamber. Everyone had expected a denial, a defense, an excuse, but there was no defense against the evidence, and no excuse that would save him now. "This court accepts your plea," the judge said. "The sentence is 30 years of rehabilitation on the prison world of Kethros Prime." A small smile crossed the judge's face. "Yes, the planet has been renamed in honor of the judge you once paid to kill innocent humans. It seemed appropriate." Torek was led away without another word. He did not look at Mira as he passed. He did not beg for mercy or forgiveness. He simply walked with his head down, a broken man facing the consequences of his actions. Mira watched him go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no joy. Just a quiet emptiness where the hatred used to be. The trial was over, but the day was not finished. After a short break, the chamber filled again for a different kind of ceremony. This time, the gallery was packed with beings from across the galaxy, all watching as Ambassador Chen walked to the center of the chamber floor. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice carrying through the room, "I am honored to announce that Earth has accepted your invitation to join the High Council as a full member." Applause erupted from the gallery. Minor species representatives cheered and waved their appendages. Even some of the older powers joined in, recognizing that the galaxy had entered a new era. Chen raised his hand for silence. "Humanity accepts this honor with humility and responsibility. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek to dominate. We seek only to serve the cause of justice and to protect those who cannot protect themselves." He turned to look at Mira, who stood at the edge of the chamber with a small group of human soldiers. "And to that end," Chen continued, "I am announcing the creation of a new division within Earth's military forces. It will be called the Sentinel Corps, and its mission will be to monitor galactic affairs and respond to threats against innocent beings anywhere in the known universe." He smiled. The commander of this new division is someone you all know. Someone who showed the galaxy what one human can do when pushed too far. He gestured toward Mira. Commander Mira Vance, please step forward. Mira walked to the center of the chamber, feeling the eyes of thousands of beings upon her. She was not wearing the prisoner's clothes anymore. She was wearing the uniform of Earth's military, black and silver with the emblem of the Prometheus program on her shoulder. A new rank badge gleamed on her collar. Commander Vance, Chen said formally, do you accept this responsibility? Mira looked out at the chamber, at the faces of the minor species who had suffered for so long, at the representatives of the great powers who were finally learning to share their privilege. She thought about the 17 humans who had died before her, whose names she still carried in her heart. I accept, she said, but I have one condition. Chen raised an eyebrow. What condition? Mira turned to address the entire chamber. The Sentinel Corps will protect the innocent. We will respond to injustice wherever we find it. We will use our power to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Her voice hardened. But we will not become the thing we fight against. We will not use our strength to dominate or control. We will save people, not conquer them. And we will never, ever abandon our humanity in the pursuit of victory. She looked at Chen with steady eyes. If Earth's leaders ever order me to become a monster, I will refuse. That is my condition. Chen smiled, and there was pride in his eyes. That condition is accepted, Commander. It is exactly what we hoped you would say. The ceremony continued with speeches and declarations, and the signing of formal documents. But Mira barely heard any of it. Her mind was already moving forward, thinking about the work that waited for her. After the ceremony ended, Mira walked alone through the streets of the capital city. The alien buildings towered above her, strange and beautiful in the golden afternoon light. Beings of 100 different species passed by, some nodding to her in respect, others hurrying away in fear. She was famous now, the human girl who had killed a judge and changed the galaxy. Some saw her as a hero, others saw her as a threat. She was not sure what she saw herself as. She stopped at a small plaza near the edge of the city where a new monument had been built. It was a simple structure, a black stone pillar with names carved into its surface. 17 names, 17 humans who had been murdered by a corrupt system that no longer existed. Sarah Chen, Michael Torres, David Okafor. The list went on, name after name, each one a life cut short by injustice. Mira stood before the monument and spoke their names aloud, one by one. It was something she did every day, a ritual of remembrance that helped her stay connected to why she fought. I kept my promise, she said quietly when she finished. I made them listen. I made them change. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure that no one else has to die the way you did. She touched the stone gently, feeling the cold surface beneath her fingertips. Then she turned and walked away. That evening, Mira boarded a transport shuttle bound for the UES Prometheus, which was now the flagship of the Sentinel Corps. Admiral Okonkwo was waiting for her in the hangar bay, along with the officers who would serve under her command. Commander Vance, Okonkwo said, saluting crisply, welcome aboard. We have a situation that requires your attention. Mira returned the salute. What situation, Admiral? Okonkwo handed her a data pad. A human freighter captain has been arrested on charges of smuggling in the Kelani system. The evidence is questionable, and the trial is scheduled for tomorrow. Sound familiar? Mira looked at the data pad, reading the details quickly. A young woman named Anna Park, accused of crimes she probably did not commit, facing a court system that might not give her a fair hearing. The Kelani were allies now, but old habits died hard. Corruption still lurked in the corners of the galaxy. How long until we reach the Kelani system? Mira asked. 12 hours at maximum speed. Mira nodded slowly. Then we leave immediately and send a message ahead. Let them know that the Sentinel Corps is coming and that we expect Captain Park to receive a fair trial with proper evidence and impartial judges. Okonkwo smiled. And if they don't cooperate? Mira looked out the window of the hangar bay at the stars glittering in the endless darkness of space. She thought about what she had been through, what she had done, what she had become. She was not the same frightened girl who had stood trial 6 months ago. She was something more now, something stronger, but she was still human. "If they don't cooperate," she said quietly, "then we remind them what happens when you push humanity too far. But we do it without becoming monsters. We save people. We don't destroy them." She turned back to Okonkwo. "Those are the rules, Admiral. As long as I command this division, those will always be the rules." Okonkwo nodded with respect in her eyes. "Understood, Commander. I would not have it any other way." The shuttle launched a few minutes later, carrying Mira toward the bridge of her new ship. As the transport flew through the hangar doors and into open space, she looked back at the planet Nexara one last time. Somewhere down there, the Galactic Council was meeting in their grand chamber, making decisions that would shape the future of 1,000 worlds. Somewhere down there, beings who had once been oppressed were finally having their voices heard. And somewhere, in a prison cell on a renamed planet, a judge's murderer was beginning her 30-year sentence. No, Mira corrected herself. Not a murderer, a survivor, a protector, a spark that lit a fire that changed everything. She turned away from the window and walked toward the bridge of the UES Prometheus. There was work to do. There were people to save. And the galaxy was finally ready to meet the humanity it had always feared. The stars stretched out before her, endless and full of possibility. And Mira Vance, commander of the Sentinel Corps, smiled as she went to meet them. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Humanity would not be bullied, would not be broken, and would never abandon their own. And as long as there were people like Mira willing to stand in the darkness, the light of justice would never go out. This was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning.